What's up, everyone? How are you today? So good to be back on the Dentists Who Invest podcast. Episode number 45 we're on. We're creeping up to the half century. I'm going to have to think about something special to commemorate that. All ideas and suggestions welcome on that front because I really don't have any sort of plan formulated as to what we might do when we get to 50, but I'm very excited. Also, we're also reaching a bit of a landmark with group members too because we're currently on 4.7 and 5 is a nice round number, which I think is cause for celebration. Again, any suggestions welcome as to what we might do to commemorate that. I actually have a very good idea with regards to a special guest that we might get on, but I'm always willing. I've always got my ears open, willing. I've got my ears open to suggestions. Willing ears open to suggestions is what I was trying to say. So feel free to throw those ideas at me too. We are continuing Side Gigs Month with another special dentist who has started her side gig, a very well known dentist as well, which we'll come on to in just a minute. I would love to hear if Dentists Who Invest Side Gigs Month has inspired anybody out there to start their own side gigs. I'd love to hear your stories. Please share them with me because that was the aim of the month after all. So please reach out to me if that is the case because that was the whole point. And wow, what an amazing, incredible thing to go through and what a life enhancing thing it's been for me. So yeah, please by all means reach out if that has been something that has applied to you and encouraged you to do to create your own side gig rather. So back to the matter at hand. We welcome Dr. Sheila Li today, who has a wonderful facial aesthetics business, to talk about her experiences, why she loves facial aesthetics, and taking that big bad leap into the world of starting her own business. Sheila, how are you today?
Hi, James. Thanks for the little introduction. Yeah, I'm really well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
My absolute pleasure, Sheila. Sheila, where are you speaking to us from? Where in the world do you reside?
I'm in London at the moment. So I'm not from London. I'm from Birmingham, but currently living in London since I graduated.
I see. Wonderful. And it's my absolute pleasure to have you on today as someone extremely qualified in the side gigs world. Because I was just saying to Sheila off camera, before I did Dentists Who Invest, before I did anything with regards to social media, I knew Sheila Li, and I knew Sheila Li as the dentist who did facial aesthetics. So you're doing something right in terms of your marketing or your branding, Sheila, and that's great. And that really shows me how much your business has grown and flourished. And I really think that you'll have some amazing lessons to share for people who are interested in starting your own side gig, their own side gig. And I'm sure lots of people recognize Sheila as well. So a compliment for you there, Sheila. A compliment.
Thanks, James. I mean, I don't think of myself like that, but that's always really nice to hear, obviously. You know, I think, I mean, it's not, it's probably the copious amounts of videos on Instagram. And I think we're living in such a visual world now that everything is online. And, you know, I do spend a good chunk of my working, I guess I assign a good chunk of my working week to social media, which is such an important part of marketing now in our field, in dentistry, in facial aesthetics, and all the things that we do. So I think probably that's it. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm well known for sure.
Oh, okay. I think a few people listening would contradict you there, but it's a good thing.
Oh,
It's a
thank
good thing. It means that you're out and about. But actually, Sheila, now that you mention it, I feel like that might be an interesting thing to talk about later because a lot of people see the videos on social media, they see the TikToks, they see the stories, they see all of those things, and maybe they don't think to themselves, actually, what does that look like behind the
you.
scenes? What is the pragmatic process? Do I have to set aside time to create content on social media, or is it something organic? And it's a little bit of both for me personally, but I'm curious to hear your relationship about it. That is something that we'll talk about in just a minute. First of all, Sheila, we know that you're a dentist. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your journey into dentistry, even before we get onto the whole facial aesthetic
Yeah.
side of things?
Okay, so I studied. I went to study dentistry at King's, back when. I mean, I graduated coming up 7 years now, and dentistry was my second degree. I did it as a graduate at King's, and I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted a career in cancer research. Actually, did a degree in biomedical sciences. Spent about half a year just doing some cancer sort of research work based in the lab. I just realized that it wasn't for me. I did a little bit of traveling and soul searching, and then I thought that I wanted to do medicine. I mean, originally I thought I wanted to be a heart surgeon, and did a little bit of traveling, came back, did a little bit of work experience, did a lot of work experience at various like general practices, and then in dental practice. And I met this chap in, I believe it was in Leicester, and he took me into his surgery, and he was doing a lot of like, if I remember correctly, he was doing a gum lift. He was treating a gummy smile, but via a surgical procedure. And he talked about the business of dentistry, and he talked about the science of dentistry. He was so passionate about it. And I thought, you know what, I could do this. I really would love like my own business. And I am pretty good naturally at science. So I thought I'll go in and I'll explore. So I went to King's and studied dentistry, and it was it's different when it's your second degree. Like your first degree it's not really, I mean, my first degree wasn't really a degree. It was a very expensive 3 years. My second degree was really, it was a lot more expensive, but I really loved it. I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to get good at it. And, you know, well before even graduating, I was already investing in courses. I was paying to go on composite courses. I was paying to do lots of different things. I was involved with the BACD actually from young in my career. And did a lot sort of extracurricular beyond that, because I was just really interested in going out and getting started straight away. So that was when I graduated. In my final year, my very best friend, she is a doctor, and she did dentistry as her second degree because she wanted to get into Max Facts, and she was using facial aesthetics to actually get herself through dental school. And she was running a training academy in facial aesthetics, and I came on mostly because I wanted to help her build the business. I did a little bit of marketing. I dabbled in marketing. I dabbled in like experiential marketing before starting my degree in dentistry. I knew a little bit about business. I knew a bit about advertising and, you know, stuff about websites, SEO, and that sort of thing. So I was like, I'm going to help her like make this profitable, because she just wanted to ethically train dentists, not dentists, just anybody in aesthetic, but she wanted to ethically train them, make sure they're really, really good. And she wasn't really making any money in this. And I was just like, you know what, you've got such an amazing course, like you need to be making money. So I came into it not interested in the facial aesthetic side of things, just wanting to help her make her business profitable. So, and then I was there on even though I was in there for business perspective, I was there every single lecture she gave, and that some of this stuff just stuck into my head. And then I thought, you know what, I can do this. I can inject a face. It looks quite straightforward. And she really believed in me. She really thought I had an eye for it. I mean, I didn't. I was really nervous, self-conscious about it, but she was a great mentor to me. And so in my final year, I was already trained in facial aesthetics, and I was actually injecting under her mentorship, because as we know, it's a really unregulated industry, and anyone can inject filler or Botox. You have to be prescribed Botox, but once you can get your hand on it, anyone can inject it. So I was injecting in my final year as a dental student, and then in my VT year, I was really lucky to be in a practice that was really supportive of the fact that I knew a bit of facial aesthetics, and I was injecting. So I don't think you're allowed to inject now, actually. I think they make it a thing that you're not able to do any facial aesthetics. But when I was doing DF1, you were able to do it as a side thing. So I was seeing private patients for facial aesthetics for my principal. I mean, I didn't earn any money from it, but you know, I was making them money, and there started the career, I guess. And so from very early on, I was doing that, and I was juggling that with dentistry as well. And I composite was my thing. I absolutely loved working with composite, and I loved working with just doing composite day in, day out. And, I was trying to get really good at that as well. And at the same time doing facial aesthetics. So that was how it started. It all really started. And I get that actually, I probably didn't even answer your question. I totally went off on a tangent, didn't I?
No, no, you totally did. No, it was great. It was, you answered the question and then some more, which was brilliant because everybody learned a little bit more about you and your journey into facial aesthetics, which it just so happens was a very organic one from what you've described. It
Yeah.
just kind of happened. And then you realized at some point that this was your calling, your passion, or was it more so that you were gravitating away from dentistry, or was it a combination of both?
It was really difficult for me, I would say early on, because I loved dentistry. I loved cutting teeth. I loved creating composite build. I loved doing composite build-ups, and I was obsessed with teeth. I was obsessed with anatomy, and I was just and I would like to say that I was naturally very good at dentistry, but I was also naturally very good at facial aesthetics. Um, and my time was just getting split early on, very, very early on. And I remember actually my DF1 trainer, he said to me, he was just like, I bet in 3 years, you're not going to be doing any, in 5 years, you're not going to be doing any in dentistry. I guarantee you'll just be doing facial aesthetics. And that broke my heart. Like, I literally was beside myself that he thought that would be the case. Like it wasn't so obvious that I was so obviously passionate about dentistry and like I was so good at it. And also I was like, that's never going to be the case. And you know what? It probably would happen a lot earlier, but I dragged it on for at least an extra 2 years just to prove a point. And when I come to think about it, it probably would have happened a lot earlier. I finally made the decision after the pandemic, after I had my second daughter, and then the pandemic hit, that I wouldn't go back into dentistry and I'd go into facial aesthetics full time. But it initially started out as just being something on the side, and I did it really well, and I was selling facial aesthetics with private dental treatment to my patients. And then that naturally meant that I was just doing more private dentistry anyway. Quite early on, I was working in a mixed practice doing more facial aesthetics. I wasn't meeting my UDAs. I found it harder, and I mean, I couldn't sustain that. So after 18 months having done my foundation year, I went straight into private dentistry completely, which is insane to think that actually, but I did. And then was doing more and more facial aesthetics. And as it went, the more I was doing, the less dentistry I was doing. And then I would say in the last 3 years, I was doing a half day a week, and really crazy stuff a half day a week. I was doing like full on like composite makeovers and things. And I was just like, what am I doing? I'm going to get sued. Like, I'm not doing this enough to be able to do this sort of thing consistently. And I had an amazing, like, Chris Orr was my mentor, and he was incredible. And I found it so hard to walk away from something that so many people wanted that I had. I honestly found it so difficult to give up that. Like, and that was the thing that I held on for the longest time, actually, because he was mentoring me and he was like getting me to do these awesome, like, we were case planning these incredible cases, and he really believed in me. Both Zainab and Chris really believed in me, and it was incredible to have that, and to then also not really want it now that I had it. And I guess I kept it for an ego thing. And then the pandemic hit, and I was supposed to go back after my maternity leave with my second daughter. I was meant to go back, and I didn't because actually my facial aesthetics was just paying for dentistry. I was doing dentistry as a hobby, and I truly was doing it as a hobby. It was costing me so much money doing the additional CPD, like going on extra courses, even though like I wasn't really earning very much from it. And that almost neutralized what I was earning. The course of, as you know, the cost of dental courses is so much. Facial aesthetics was paying for my dentistry as a hobby, and it was cool to say that for a while. But then my husband was like, "Come on, babe, what are you doing? Like, we've got a family. Like, what are you doing?" So I was just like, "Yeah, no, I was being a bit selfish." So yeah, I gave it up, and it was one of the hardest decisions I had to make. But I'm relieved, actually, because it's freed up more of my time, and I can focus and concentrate. And in that time, I was able to launch a training academy. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts, I guess they say.
Awesome. So again, a bit of an organic move, really. Well, you know what? A great dilemma to have, because for one people, for lots of people, it might be one or the other, but it seemed to me like you could have went down either avenue. So you must have a great pair of hands, is all I can say. There'll be lots of people listening to this, Sheila. Facial aesthetics is something that a lot of young dentists, it's kind of like the carrot is dangled in front of them and they're very interested in doing it.
And I would say ortho.
And or yeah, well,
Like
clear
Invisalign.
aligners
Clear
maybe.
aligners,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
They're the two things. You
definitely.
either kind of do facial aesthetics or you do clear aligners to kind of, and I think it's the, I don't, I mean, for me, maybe it was a way for me to bolster my CV so that I could get into private dentistry. That was my main reason to do it to begin with, because I knew that I wanted to be in private dentistry. I honestly, I really hated working in that gray of, when you're in a mixed practice and you've got to sell private treatment, but you've got the NHS contract, and you were saying things that was very gray. And I just never, first of all, I was a complete loss maker. Like I did all the private stuff that I was supposed to do, but for my NHS patients. So that was not good obviously for my principals, first and foremost. But then I just hated working in that gray. Like I couldn't do it. I felt conflicted. So for me, facial aesthetics was my way to get into private dentistry. And it just happened to be that I was really good at it. So, but you're right. Yeah, it is one of those things that I guess younger dentists kind of think, do I do it? Do I not? Don't I do it? And you can't really dabble in it, I would say, because you're messing with people's faces. You can't really just do a little bit of it. But there is a massive element of it that you can do that's really relevant to dentistry. And I truly believe this. Like there is a lot of stuff that I still work in dental practice. I still work at the practice that I'm in, doing solely facial aesthetics as part of the wider restorative team. And I do a lot of gummy smile treatments. I do a lot of parafunction, bruxism, and we do a lot of diagnosis. And I work together with the team to do those things. And when we're doing full smile design and smile makeovers, my facial aesthetic is very part of that treatment plan for our patients. And it's really good to be one part of the team and just doing like your bit as an overall plan for the patient and really getting it right. So when that final picture goes up, you're like, I'm not looking at it thinking, yeah, but they could have dropped that lip a little bit. That everything is there. The lips drop, the lips full. It's everything looks nice and balanced. The veneers are in, or the composite bonding's great. The alignment's perfect. Everything is great. And to do your bit as part of that wider team, that's really cool, and I love that. So it does seem to be like a whole topic itself if you want to really go into it. But there is an element that I do think. And I get a lot of referrals in now for gummy smiles, and I just think this is so easy. Like dentists need to be doing this. It's just, we're injecting local anesthetic every single day. It's one injection. It's not even as complex as injecting local, not to make it sound trivial, but it's so straightforward. We inject local anesthetic every day, having a little bit of Botox just to drop the smile. It doesn't need to be something that you're referring to me for. Even with masseters, like it doesn't need to be, if we can diagnose it, we can absolutely treat it. So I really do believe that more dentists need to be doing it as part of their overall treatment plan. I'm not saying that they have to treat lines and wrinkles and give people massive lips. Like I'm not saying that at all, but there are definite dental elements that dentists are really suited for. And when we do the training, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent again, but when I do the training, I train a lot of doctors, dentists, and nurses. The dentists, I'm sorry, but they're the better ones. Like they're really skilled with their hands. They work in such a small space. And so, and especially the cosmetic dentists that obviously do a lot of smile design, like they see the face completely different to, our nurse colleagues and our medics. Unless I'm training a plastic surgeon, again, that's slightly different. But yeah, it's such a fantastic add-on as a treatment, and a great income earner as a side treatment. I mean, I earn the same in a day as I did working 3-4 days as a dentist. It's nuts. And that's and what was hard for me was when I was trying to convince the patient to have an onlay, and the cost of an onlay, £1,200, and they were umming and ahhing, and this same patient who I was saying, 2 syringes of filler is going to cost you £800, and you have to see me again in 9 to 12 months. And she's like, yeah, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. But the onlay, I'm not sure. I have to think about it. It's just patient psychology, just the way they think about things, just nuts. And it was just so much more fun to sell 2 tubes of filler for £800 versus an onlay that's going to last you 10 to 15 years, and you're really having to think about it, and me having to go down through every pro and con. And here I'm like, well, I can put 2 mils of filler in your face and make you look better and make you feel a bit more confident. And they were basically biting my hands off. So, but doing that made me so much more confident about then talking about veneers and onlays and saying, you know what, it's only £1,200, and this is going to last you 10 years, up to 15 years, if not longer. And these are veneers. It's you're probably never going to need to do this more than once if you look after your teeth. And then that really made me better at prescribing. I hate the word selling, prescribing private dental treatment, like cosmetic treatments for patients. And then that's why I was doing more bigger plans, but on less days of working as dentist. And I thought, I'm just going to get sued. I'm just going to get sued. I'm not doing it enough. So I stopped. Obviously, it was the better thing to do. I couldn't maintain that amount of extra sort of side work for the two things. And that's what it boiled down to for me.
That's great. Well, yeah, you kind of anticipated my question really, because where I was going with that was that I wanted to ask, is there a certain sort of foundation dentist or younger dentist or dentist of any age group really that fits the bill of a profile of someone who should be a facial aesthetics practitioner? But really, you've answered that because you said that it can fit in to any dentist's the way you spoke about it then was it would be useful for every dentist to know this really, so it's not tied down to one specific demographic or individual, etc. Because that was always something that confused me about facial aesthetics. I always thought to myself, should I only really think about it if I want to be the ABB dentist or the dentist who's doing veneers and the more aesthetic things? But it fits in anywhere. That's awesome. So that's great. We are obviously in side gigs month, so we must talk about side gigs and business and taking that leap. For you, it was very much an organic thing by the sounds of it. It just kind of happened, really. And I think that's nice to hear, because a lot of people who are thinking about creating their own side gig think to themselves, well, I'm either in or I'm out. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can be something that you can phase in. You can try it out for a little while. You can sacrifice a little bit of clinic time, providing that you don't need the money to do something else entirely that might break up your week. And if that's a side gig that you do for pleasure or you do for business, then both of those things are fine. It's such a life enhancing thing. And really, with regards to it being a business, you must know if you enjoy it, first of all. And the only real way that you'll learn that you're going to enjoy something is by taking some time to do it. Taking the time to do it to learn if you'll enjoy it, and also to learn if it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're skilled at. And then should it flourish into something special like it has done for Sheila, then that's an amazing thing. So there never was really that one scary moment for you, Sheila, where you felt like you were leaping off a cliff or you were taking the plunge as such.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think to a certain degree, I don't think of myself as too much of a risk taker. I quite like a little bit of managed risk. And for me, it was always, as it was growing more, my facial aesthetics, I was naturally starting to do less dentistry. And as I did less dentistry, I was doing more facial aesthetics. And I was just increasing my days and decreasing where it needed to be, or sort of analyzing, what is my workflow like? What do I want to do? And how do I go about doing this? And, I guess I didn't make that complete leap over to facial aesthetics, or even now when I'm trying to decide whether I want to make that complete leap into just training a lot more, it's still taking, I add and take away from the least enjoyable, or I guess the least profitable, because ultimately for me it isn't about money. But when you have a family, you kind of have to be the most productive you can, and that means in terms of income as well, with the time that you have when you're assigning that to your work part of your life. And I don't want my work life to be as much as I'd actually, pre-kids, I'd happily have it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But when children come into the the plan, it just becomes like your priorities change. And I still love every aspect of dentistry and facial aesthetics, like I really do. But I also love being a mum, and I want to be present. I want to be there. And, you know, it obviously helps that I have a husband who really allows me to do all those work and business related things and still yet get to come home and be glory mum. But, you know, I still want to be there more. And when you have to kind of look at your life like that, you do have to take things that either bring you joy or give you an income, so that you can spend more time at home. And so for me, I did start taking out dentistry because I guess if I didn't have kids, I probably would have carried on for as long as I could do, but I do. And so, you know, you have to make these decisions eventually, and it's the right thing to do, because that's how you grow and that's how you progress. And so that's how I did it. But you're right. I think you'll either leap into something like blindly and you'll do really well. I mean, there's definitely a cause for that, because then if you completely drop what makes you money and jump into what is a hobby, then you have to make it work, right? You can't, there's no doubt about it. Like, and you probably will be really successful if you're brave enough to do that. And if you are, like, I'd encourage it, because you will really make it work. But if you're not, doing it this way totally works as well. I mean, it's allowed me to do it for the best part of 4.5 years.
I think the biggest thing that I needed to hear for a long time, and maybe there'll be some people listening to this podcast who this will resonate with, or this will help. Really, for me, when we were talking about money just a second ago, I spent a lot of time just trying to make as much money as I possibly could. And what an unhealthy mindset, because there's no upper limit to that. Providing that you have enough to live on and enough to save, then after that, there is a little bit of leeway or scope for you to do something interesting, or something outside of dentistry, or something that can be a side gig, or something that can be a complete other entire hobby or dimension of your life. But that sounds so obvious, but I didn't know that for so long. And I used to work in clinics 6 days, and I look back on that and I think, you know, there was so much time. If you have the drive and the passion, that spare time outside of work, you can do amazing things with that. You can try out so many other things that can enhance your life and potentially be business avenues, business ventures, etc. And it's almost like you choose certainty because you know it's comfortable. Whereas the only place that some really exciting stuff happen is when you choose a little bit of uncertainty too. So it's maybe just about purposefully searching out a little bit of uncertainty and seeing what transpires, seeing what magic can happen. And too much certainty is good to a degree. Certainty is what puts food in the fridge, food on the table, you know, keeps the lights on in the house, doesn't it really? Because certainty is having an income every month. But it's good to have a balance, is what I'm saying. And I wish I could somehow send those words back to a younger version of myself, because I really, really, really needed to hear it. And it just so happens for me that that leap into uncertainty has been amazing. I now obviously run Dentists Who Invest, and that's become a whole source of revenue from itself. Even learning about crypto, that was one of the best decisions that I ever made. That's a source of revenue for me as well. And both of those things were me thinking to myself, actually, what if I just do something entirely different? Don't learn about dentistry, choose uncertainty, and see what happens. That's where the magic begins. But unfortunately, certainty is too big a driver for my past self and for a lot of people. And I think that hearing that will help a lot of people. What do you think on that one, Sheila?
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it is also circumstantial as well. I mean, if you know you have a family, of course you can't. It's not always easy to choose uncertainty, but I do think we should definitely choose growth. And you know, there are people out there who we start off being quite passionate about dentistry, and it's hard. It's a really tough career choice with the notes that we have to write, with the threat of litigation all the time. Like you can see why people become dispassionate about it, and you get into a slog of coming in, either doing your UDAs or hitting your targets, your sliding scale targets, or whatever it is you're doing. And you almost at the beginning of your career, you know, you're really wanting to grow, you're going on courses, and then eventually you get into this sort of slog of things, and you know, you're just going in doing it. And actually I would say, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a side gig. Like, choose to then grow a particular skill set within dentistry just to reignite your passion within dentistry so that you can enjoy it more, because we spend so much of our time working that it's just a shame to not love it. Like, and if you don't love it, absolutely, yeah, take that leap and go and do something uncertain, and find a different joy, because we spend too much time working to be able to hate what you do, and it's just all to be scared of being sued all the time.
I think something that's really valuable and something that's very non-committal, and that doesn't really make you decide that you have to either leave your job or pursue something else on the side immediately, at the point that you do it, is to create an online presence or to create a social media platform which shares
Oh,
with the world what you like.
or an alter
Because,
ego,
pardon?
pretend to be someone else for a while.
Well, yes, I'm James Martin by day and Batman by night. In case you were wondering who the real identity of Batman was, it's me. But yes, that's another story. But yeah, the thing about having a social media identity, the thing about having a social media presence is you can do it, you can grow it just when you have some free time. You can do it around your job. You can learn more about what it is that you're passionate about. You can connect with other people who enjoy what you enjoy. You begin to be better at whatever that skill is because of the spread of knowledge between you and the people who follow you on that social media platform. And that's the side of social media that people don't often hear. People hear about the negative side, the fake news, whatever, all of that stuff. But that's the side of social media that I honestly think needs a huge PR change, and is something that I had no idea about until I did it myself. So if there's anybody out there who does have a passion or an interest in something, start a following, aim it at a demographic that you know that you can relate to and that can relate to you. So for lots of people that would be dentists. And you know what? If it doesn't take off, it doesn't take off. And at the very least, it'll be therapeutic for you to share your journey, to share what you're interested in. There's always something to be gained from that, even if it doesn't necessarily flourish into this massive channel that has thousands of followers. I just think it's an incredibly worthy thing. And if it does become something special, then it does. And if it doesn't, well, it's not like you've ventured anything, it's not like you've staked anything, maybe a little bit of time. So just something to think about, just something to think about if you do have something that you're passionate about. Sheila, we did want to talk about your social media presence. Did you find it really hard to put videos out at the start, or was that something that you took to like a duck to water? Was that something that you were really happy about from the
You
beginning?
know what? Like, going back to that point before I answer that question about what you were saying about social media and putting yourself out there,
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like. I mean, I'm quite a self-conscious person, and whatever I put out there, I never watch back, because I would literally pick it apart every single time. And the first thing you have to do is just train yourself not to do that. And actually, what I would say is that most people don't care about the things that you're picking apart with regards to what you're putting out there. But the one thing that social media did for me was made me more accountable to myself. And so, but the more that I was trying to make myself into an expert, the more I was becoming an expert just naturally at the
There you
field that
go.
I
Well,
was in,
that's
you know,
brilliant. Yeah, yeah. You
because
you learn when you teach. You
yeah,
really do.
absolutely. And you're teaching it to patients, or you're trying to teach to other dentists. You're doing something, and the whole point of creating content is because you know something, you want to give it to somebody else, you know. And there's nothing to be self-conscious about that. And to answer your question, when I first posted I mean, even now, to a certain, like, there'll be days where I'm just like, oh, I can't do that. Like, I don't feel like I'm in the mood. I have to get kind of right in the right mind space to be able to create a video. And I would say in the first couple of, maybe the first few months I was doing it, I was sitting there and I was tweaking the videos, I was editing it, I was recording. You know, a 2-minute video would take me an hour and a half to record, because I'd want to get it right and perfectly, like, said on camera, without any ums, ahs, buts, and any of those things. And and I would just, it would break me because I'd spend so much time and I put it, and then no one would even watch it. Like maybe one, maybe like my mum or my sister, or they'd go on, they'd comment like, "Yay, you did really well. I really liked them." I'm like, oh, okay, but you know what? Like, and I go back to those videos, and I quite like them. I quite like how how like self-conscious I was in them. And but what I would say is actually just put lots of them out there. Just keep doing it until you, and then naturally you just get better at it. And I wouldn't say that I'm great at it. I just don't care anymore. I just do it because, you know, this is what I want to say. I'm going to say it. If you want to listen, you listen. If you don't, you know, that's fine. Like just scroll past. And don't be self-conscious about it, because there are people that are going to want to listen, even if it's not an educational video, if it's an experience. Like actually most of my videos that get the most listens and the most interaction are the ones where I talk about my experiences as being a mum, like how difficult it is to be really good at what you do, but also to really want to be present and be a mum. And you know, my experience of trying to raise children, or trying to breastfeed, all of those things, I actually get a lot more interaction with those. And I think that's because it makes me a little bit more approachable and human. And I would say do those things and be yourself. And it was only through social media that actually I was able to grow myself and to grow better in doing that. And it's a great platform. You kind of have to be on social media now. I would say that it's really difficult to build a career, even, and this doesn't just mean Instagram. It's LinkedIn. It's everything. It's LinkedIn. It's Instagram. It's Facebook. It's TikTok, or whatever it is the next cool thing is, you know. It is at the moment. You just have to be, because this is our world now. You know, it's digital. That's how people respond, and they want to see more of you. They want to see more about who it is that's injecting their face, who it is that's drilling their teeth. That's what patients want. And you know, when I'm training other people, they want to see what I'm like on a day-to-day basis. They want to be able to see that they can relate to me. So therefore they do want me to train them, or they want me to mentor them, or want to go on the course that I'm training in. And that's really important, because you build relationships that way. So I think social media is really important. I think that everybody, you need to get out there. You need to just get started with it, and get started with it early when nobody knows you, because then you can muck it up as much as you like. And then save those ones for the when you're feeling a bit low and you want to laugh at yourself a little bit.
That's a good point.
But
So
did you get that as well? Or were you just great at just being on camera? It must have been. I reckon it's the same for everybody.
no, I was terrible. I was so self-conscious. And those first few videos, I used to, well, I can say this now because it doesn't bother me any longer. But at the start, I used to and ah so much in the podcasts that I used to go back through the podcasts and edit them out. And if anybody listens really closely, they can hear where I've edited them out, because you just hear like a little boop like that, like a little, like 1/30th of an you know, something like that. And you know what? Even after I did it, there was a few that I just thought, oh my goodness, I've spent an hour. I don't have anything, you know, I've spent an hour editing this. I don't have anything left in the tank to edit it, because it's so tedious
Yeah.
cutting out those little bits at exactly the right point when the starts and when it ends. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it up now. And if you listen to them, you can still hear there's still quite a few in there. And by the way, those are the post edited ones, so you can imagine how many there were at the start. And it is something I still do it to a degree. Like, I still look back, and it's still something that I'm getting better at. And everybody, you can always get better at speaking. There's no upper
Yeah.
limit. There's no upper limit on that whatsoever. So I still listen to them back, and there's little things that I critique. But two things happen. One is you care a lot less, and two
Yeah.
is you get better. And then there's just that magic point where it reaches where you're just content with it no matter what. And you know, you'll always get better, you'll always improve, things will always be on an upward tangent in terms of how well you orate, how well you speak. Therefore it becomes way less time consuming and way more natural, and by the way, way more fun. It actually
Yeah.
becomes, I look forward to shooting the podcast now. I genuinely enjoy it. I love uh you know, meeting the guests, hearing their story, talking to them. I look forward to putting them out. I love it when people message me and they say, "Oh, I really like this podcast. What did you think about this?" It's awesome. It's brilliant. I also wanted to talk just about one tiny little thing that you mentioned there. I don't know if anybody out there is a big fan of Gary V, but I've got. Do you know who Gary V is? Gary Vaynerchuk.
No,
He
but
is.
I've got a pen and I've written it down. I love taking a. I always write. I always love a good recommendation for anybody. So I've written his name down.
Oh, he's awesome. You'll love him. It's all about. I don't think he's everyone's cup of tea. He's this extremely high energy,
Yeah.
motivational coach, businessman from America. And there's a lot of people that would say that he's a bit too intense, but he's like that for reasons because he's extremely successful in what he does. And he has so many pearls of wisdom that he offers on his podcast, the Gary V Experience, I believe it's called. The Gary V Audio Experience, that's what it is. So Sheila, if you've got any free time when you're in the gym and you want a podcast, listen to 100%. There's so many gems in there about social media, etc., how to grow a presence, how to grow your
Yeah.
business in the 21st century, and just being a good guy as well, just being a good person, and how that's not only nice for your personal relationships, but it's also helpful for you as a business brand too. There's lots of stuff in there. But the reason that I brought up Gary Vee was he was when you were talking about putting yourself out there on social media, he was saying that social media, because of we always tend to think that social media has hit peak mass and is completely saturated with opinions. It is if you try to do what everyone else is already doing. All right. So let's say, for example, you have Kim Kardashian. There's a million people who want to be Kim Kardashian, and they post pictures like break the internet. Here is me looking classy and I don't know, wearing these this dress or all of these things. I don't know. I don't really know what Kim Kardashian does.
Sounds like you're a big Kim Kardashian follower there.
Yeah, I might be. As you can tell, I follow her avidly. Yes, indeed.
Secret follower.
I'm totally yeah. I really don't even know what it is she posts. But what I'm saying is that let's say, for example, you try to, like with me, investing, right? And crypto. There's loads of investing in crypto pages, but what there's not loads of is an investing in crypto page for dentists. Okay. Now, the reason why there are big players, there are big companies who have created investing pages and crypto pages and stuff like that. So what they're going for the mass market, right? They're going for where the majority of people are, where the majority of money is. But what they don't do, they rarely niche. And they rarely do that for two reasons. One, because it's not worth it to them, because it's small potatoes from their perspective when you're talking about massive companies. And two, because they don't have the ability to resonate with this subsection group of people. So if you can find something that speaks to enough people, that speaks to maybe even just 1,000 people, you have enough in there to create a community and maybe even to create something that could be a viable business further down the line. And let's use an example. Let's say you are someone, I'm just making this up as I go along, so this might be a terrible example. Let's say it's glasses, and it's glasses for, I don't know, farmers, okay? And they look really cool, but it's only farmers find them really cool, or they have this one specific feature that makes them really useful to farmers, like you can see your sheep really well. And was that a really bad analogy? I just made that up off the top of my head.
Oh, well, you're probably going to attract a load of farmer listeners now.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that could be a good business idea. But put it like this: there's no company out there, there's no other business out there that does that. And maybe there's loads of farmers that need these glasses. So to those farmers who need those glasses, you're absolute gold dust, okay?
Yeah.
Because they can't get that anywhere else. So you're in a market of one, competing against one person. That's you. You have that whole market. You have that whole demographic. It's totally yours. No one else will go there. One, because you'll get big enough to not make it worth their while with not very much time. And two, because in the grander scheme of things, to big companies, it's small potatoes. But to an individual, that could easily be enough money to live on, to subsist on, and even do really well on. Even with that number of people, even with that couple thousand people, something really special can happen. And when I heard Gary Vee say that, I was like, oh my goodness, you're so right. Social media has never hit peak saturation because there's limitless opportunities like that. What do you think of that, Sheila? That was just me speaking from the heart. That was all off the cuff.
I I was listening to the audiobook Atomic Habits just yesterday actually, and he makes a point of that, doesn't he? He basically says
I haven't
that
read it. I haven't read that book.
oh, you're not read it? It's
No,
amazing. It's
no.
just, well, I didn't read it. I had it as an audiobook. And it really he made a point of saying that actually, if you are, I mean, I'm not going to use his because I can't remember his exact. I'm crap at recalling
No, it's okay.
actual
That's not a
details,
swear word. That's
but
fine.
but
It's still
essentially,
PG. It's still PG.
he's basically saying that if you know, if you want to be great at something, it's really difficult to be great at something that, you know, for example, you know, if you wanted to be the best basketball player, that it's going to be really difficult because there's going to be loads of people there. But if you keep adding on like complete different unique areas and building in, like, you know, maybe you're a basketball player that you're that okay, I'm not going to use a basketball player because I don't even remember the guy that he used the name. It's such an obvious name that he used. But like, for example, you know, if I'm a dentist that then does facial aesthetics really well, and but then there are also that, you know, I want to be a great dentist. There's lots of great dentists. I want to do facial aesthetics, and you know, there's less dentists that do facial aesthetics really well.
Yeah.
And now, you know, I'm starting to research how I can use dermal fillers in the gums to treat black triangles, and I'm going to be amazing at that. I'm going to really work at that. I'm going to be really good at that because I'm going to provide a non-surgical alternative, and I'm going to be awesome at that. And there's not that many people doing that, and so it's easier for me to be epic at that because I'm now competing against probably a couple of other people versus all the dentists in the world. So it's kind of like stacking all the things that you're good at to then make it your business and be really great in that field. And then you can put that on social media because then other people are like, you know what, I didn't even know that existed. That is awesome. That now I can start sending and referring patients. You can start referring your patients to me if they have black triangles and they want it treated non-surgically, because I can inject a little bit of gum filler in there and just plump it out there.
Stacking
You know,
specialities,
that
is
is
that the
stacking
term?
specialities. That's it. And it's awesome. And I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's going to speak to a lot of people who are listening, I'm sure. And that Gary Vee thing, I'd never thought about that, because what a lot of people do is they tend to go where
The
most of
majority. Yeah.
the majority of attention is, but that's also where the majority of influencers are, people are already. And really it's niching and stacking specialities, like you say, and it's almost counterintuitive in a way. And then yeah, you might not never get a million followers or however many the Kardashians have, but you don't actually need that many to be a side to enjoy the benefits of a side hustle or a
Yeah.
social media presence. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way, Sheila.
The,
I've
the
never
one
read
thing that I
that
would
book.
add, sorry, before you
Yeah,
move on, the
far
one thing I
away.
would add about social media is I actually do a lot on social media, but I don't spend any of my time looking at social media. I mean, a podcast and things different, but like for example, Instagram, I spend none of my time on it because I actually think it can be quite damaging. And you know, sometimes you end up in a black hole of, you know, just I don't think it's real. I think that a lot of stuff on social media isn't real, and you know, it's augmented or photoshopped, and you know, I think sometimes it can have a real negative impact on you, and it's really important to talk about that because mental health is a real thing, you know, a real issue, and I found that a lot of the times when I'm feeling my lowest, that's usually where I tend to go on, you know, looking through social media, thinking that it will make me feel better. And actually it just makes me feel worse because it makes me think that, you know, it always makes you feel that, you know, you haven't reached enough, you haven't attained enough, you know, you've got the best hair, the best skin, you know, the best skills, you know, you're not doing enough photography, you're not taking the best photographs, you know, your colleagues are so much higher up than where you wanted to be. I took a break to have children, and that was a horrible spiral for me to just be on social media and be like, I really want these children, but actually, you know what, my career's on hold. And that really sucked. And that was really difficult. It was really hard to step away and look at, you know, where I'm at. And you always compare yourself. So I would say it's really good for your mental health to just not spend a lot of your time looking through other people's social media that bring you no positivity. Like you need to take that out of your life and get that out of your life.
Takes discipline to do that, by the
Yeah.
way, because it's really you're totally right. It's actually hard to do, and I find myself just browsing on Instagram and Facebook way too much, and I don't even want to share publicly what my
Mm.
screen. You know, when your iPhone gives you that notification about your screen time average daily, I don't even want to share what that was last week, but it was a bit of a wake up call for me. I actually thought to myself, there's there is not enough. How did I manage to eat and go to the gym and do other
Wow.
things that day when I spent that many hours on the screen time?
Yeah.
It actually puzzled me. So that was a bit of a wake up call for me. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Sheila, it's been wonderful having you on the podcast today. So much wisdom shared, so many exciting things that we've talked about, which will help other people on their side gigs, no doubt. What would you say to anybody who's listening today? We've made a bit of a tradition of wrapping up podcasts and side gigs month by answering this question. What would you say to anybody who's listening today who's thinking about taking the leap with their respective side gig? What are your words of wisdom on this final question before we wrap up this evening?
I would say go for it, because if you're a dentist, you'll always have that skill, and you can always go back to it, but you'll never be able to get that time back, and you'll always regret it if you don't push ahead and have, take that plunge and do that. I would say go ahead, do it, and if you have to go backwards, you can. There's no shame in doing that, but just try it, and until you try it, you will never know.
A wise man once said that when you look back over your life, you'll miss the opportunities that you'll regret most of the things that you didn't do rather than the things that you did. And that struck a huge chord with me. And it's
Yeah.
definitely been a huge impetus for me to do what I do and try other things. And I'm very lucky that there's been some success somewhere along the line. I'd never say that I'm successful, but certainly it's been fun. It's been a journey. It's been an experience. And yeah, I'm very grateful. Awesome. Sheila, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
Have you
Thanks for
enjoyed
having me.
yourself? I hope you have.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Sheila, we're going to wrap up now. It's been an absolute pleasure, as I said, to have you on the show. We shall speak again very soon. See you later.
See you.